So the world is still obviously mad with Nintendo and Mario Kart World right now, just because of how powerful bagging is and these straightaways, and Nintendo pretty much forcing us to play these intermission tracks instead of letting us have the option at the very least to play the 3-lap tracks. Well, it gets even more bizarre because Nintendo in some way kind of already addressed this, which is strange. They had a Q&A release just a couple of weeks or about a week before the game actually came out, and it's extremely funny how they actually responded to this, because apparently this was a worry of theirs from the very beginning and something that they had to make sure that they got right, which I still, even after reading this, completely don't understand what Nintendo is talking about here. What am I talking about? Well, let's dive in and take a look real quick. During Nintendo's Q&A before Mario Kart World came out, they were asked, I see, so you had to get creative in order to put together this interconnected world. On the other hand, I'm sure you've included lots of new gameplay elements in this game. Can you tell us how you went about making those? And Jikumaru stated, Mario Kart is a series of racing games that has placed a lot of emphasis on driving over the years, so the courses were designed with lots of bends. But in this game, since you're driving around an interconnected world, we needed to make it fun to drive not only around corners, but also in a straight line. The interviewer states, make it fun to drive in a straight line? How did you approach that? And Jikumaru states, for example, when going from point A to point B, we tried placing lots of bends along the way like we always do, but with too many bends, you lose sight of your destination. Then your goal of traveling from point A to point B becomes more difficult. That said, driving for ages down a straight road isn't much fun either. So we figured what we were lacking was some kind of gameplay mechanic for straight roads. That's where the idea of some of the game's new elements such as the rail ride and wall ride came from. The development team collectively referred to these new features as tricks. So there's more to this that I want to read, but I wanted to stop here because I'm utterly confused by this, to the point where I'm genuinely wondering if this is a joke or not, because there's no way Nintendo is actually looking at this game the way that they are. So let me go back one thing at a time and just talk about it. So apparently these intermissions were going to have a lot more bends in them, and they decided no, because you lose point of your destination. What? If you're traveling from one point to the other, yes, from point A to point B in a straight line is the quickest way to get to that destination. But this shouldn't be about what's the quickest way to get from one track to the other. It should be making the destination trip from one point to the other a entertaining and fun journey. This isn't about as fast as we can get from one track to the other with these intermissions. I feel like they have the wrong mindset there. It should be about fun first, and that's what normally Nintendo's about. It's about what wacky things can we do to make it a fun journey to get from this track to this track. And I feel like having lots of bends and turns and kind of off the beaten path, for these intermissions would have made this 10 times better. Why do we have to see where we're headed? Why can't they have at least one small part of the intermission that's a straightaway, right before we reach that destination? Maybe right at the beginning and right at the end is a straightaway, where the rest is just a bunch of bends and curves. But having one full straight line doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, of course, the intermissions in this game, most of them aren't just an absolute straight line, but for the most part, it is. A couple little left or right turns isn't really making it a big difference. It's just big empty roads that lead you straight to the track. So I'm really not understanding their logic with that one. Now, Nintendo themselves even admitted that driving down a straight line isn't fun either. So that's why they implemented the trick system. And once again, I'm completely confused, because you're telling me that the trick system in this game, the wall riding and the rail riding, that trick system was implemented to make the intermissions more entertaining? There's just no way, because there's no instances hardly at all where you need to wall ride or rail ride. The trick system is at its absolute worst on the intermissions. Honestly, the tricks felt like they were made for the tracks. You're telling me that Nintendo made these tricks for the intermissions to keep them entertaining? They don't even go together. Once again, I feel like that's the biggest problem with this game, is that there's two random ideas that working together just clash in a negative way. You can't have this open world with hardly anything in it and also try to have people use this brand new trick feature, because I'll be honest, this trick addition to this game, those mechanics are some of the best additions that Mario Kart could have ever received. I have so much fun playing on the tracks and hitting the shortcuts and wall riding and rail riding and finding new secret paths paths and quicker ways. There's so many branching paths and ways you can go on the tracks. It's absolutely phenomenal. But then you get on these straightaways, like right here on this beach. What does Nintendo want me to grind or wall ride on? There's nothing here. It's literally just a straight path in the ocean. I'm so confused. Like, I could force a wall ride on some of these things, but it's not doing anything. And that's the thing too. There are some grind rails and like telephone wires and stuff on some of the tracks, but it's almost every single time a lot slower of a path than just driving down the road. In fact, some people online have even tested theories where drifting is technically slower than just driving dead straight in this game, which is crazy. Like, there's a rail all the way on the left and on the right sides here that you're looking at. You don't need to be on them, because if you go on them, they're far on the outside and it actually is way slower. Why aren't there any rails like in the middle of the map? Why aren't there any grind rails just that you can jump on and ride in the middle of the track or jump to the next one? Why is there not a bunch of ramps and little walls and half walls everywhere? I mean, they keep saying that this game is like a skate park, which I'm about to get into in the second part of that reading. It doesn't feel like a skate park. It feels like a road that you would see anywhere in your hometown. That's the problem. Like, there's just... these mechanics are not for the intermissions because they're not being used. Did anybody at Nintendo test that out? Did no one at Nintendo say, hey, these tricks aren't being used in these intermissions that much? Please show me the footage of Nintendo using these tricks in these intermissions, because it just doesn't make sense to me. Continuing on with the Q&A, Yabuki states, if everywhere is just straight roads, it's going to feel the same no matter where you drive. Jikamaru states, with such a vast world, we thought it'd be a shame if you were just driving in a straight line the whole time. Then we found a hint from a book that said skateboards create infinite possibilities in a city with just a single piece of wood. Tricks can open a multitude of driving possibilities for just a single wall or dirt track. We thought it would be fun to be able to drive in completely different ways just based on the player's imagination. So we made the gameplay more varied for tricks like rail ride and the wall ride. We referenced extreme sports like skateboarding, snowboarding, and BMX. Yabuki stated, I think that these tracks will really give players a chance to use their imagination as they come up with ideas like, I'm gonna drive up that wall, let me use that pillar, or can I ride that guardrail or power line? It's almost like Nintendo is like, I'm trying to piece this together as I'm reading this, and it's just not making sense. It feels like Nintendo thinks that these intermission tracks are just a big fun fest, you know? Go where you want, do what you want. It's almost like they think free roam is everything in this game. Like, every single race, every single knockout tour, it's all free roam. Who cares if you do well or not? Like, you see that wall, go ride on it. You might lose 6, 7 places, go ride on it. You see that rail, you know what? It's going to be way slower than everybody else, and you're probably going to get knocked out in the next lap, but you know what? Ride on it because it's cool. No, it's just not practical. That's the thing. Nintendo is all about this idea of wall riding and rail riding on these intermissions, but it's just not practical. You will almost always lose places and lose speed, and it's always the slower option to jump on one of these random rails on the outside of these intermission tracks. I don't get it. Finally, the interviewer follows up by saying, I see, but if you give players more moves, then you also need to design courses that account for them, right? How many courses are in the game? Which is a great question. Yabuki states, in this game, you don't just race on the courses. The areas between courses are also used for the racing. So it's as if there are courses spread out all over the world, and if you were able to add up all the possible variations, it would easily exceed 100, which we know there's technically over 200, which I don't even know why they didn't just say over 200, but the interviewer says, hang on, Yabuki-san, didn't you say earlier that it wasn't about increasing the amount of content? Everyone laughs, and Yabuki states, since it's now a single interconnected world, it's hard to do a direct comparison with the last game, but in the pursuit of approachability and fun in the new, vast world, the volume of content we had to create in terms of visual design, programming, and audio increased dramatically, and as a result, the gameplay is more varied than ever before. And I'm sorry, I just don't agree. It blows my mind that Nintendo truly thinks that these intermissions are like masterpieces to their mind. I'm not doubting it took a lot of work to create this giant interconnected world. I couldn't imagine how much work it took. But it's not an excuse just to make these giant intermissions just these big, boring roads. Now, like I said, there are some that has some really cool things going on. There's that giant wall at Bowser's Castle. There's one ocean path. I literally just tried this the other day, but if you go from DK Spaceport to Peach Stadium, there's tons of giant vehicles you can use, tons of creatures in the ocean that cause waves and big ramps in the sea. I mean, it's actually a pretty unique intermission. And it's weird. Like, Like, I think if I played like over 100 intermissions so far, I think I've enjoyed like a collective 5 of them. And no, I'm not joking. I mean, I feel like for most of the time, I have to force myself to wall ride on something, because if I don't, it's so boring how straight and monotonous some of these tracks are. So yes, in Nintendo's eyes, they truly think they did something spectacular with these intermissions. Like, and that just explains so much to me. It explains why they changed that update with online. They want people to play these intermission tracks. They're almost like forcing people to play them by saying, hey, look, we know we made something good here. Try it out and play it. Force you to play it. And I know a lot of people's complaints are also like, you guys just aren't giving it a chance. I gave it a chance. I gave it more than a chance. I have been trying over and over and over again to enjoy these. And Knockout Tour is not terrible. It just needs more cups. I'm tired of racing on the same 8 paths over and over and over again. But versus races online right now is so incredibly boring. I mean, I genuinely hate them. Racing on one really boring straightaway intermission track and racing on one lap around the actual tracks are just not fun to me. And I've just come to the conclusion that it's probably not going to get better until Nintendo adds a classic mode or something to the list, because yeah, I'm just not having that much fun online. But I am curious to hear what you guys think about this. What are your opinions on Nintendo's take on these? Like, do you agree with Nintendo for some reason, or are you even more confused like me, where I genuinely don't understand what the heck they're talking about, because none of it makes sense. It's like Nintendo knew that straightaways were boring, but they gave us boring straightaways, you know, and they claimed that the trick system was made for them, which also doesn't make sense. I'm so confused. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe before you head out. And like always, I hope you have a blessed day, and I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.